Hello, I am Mariano Gutierrez Alarcón and welcome to the 12th Man Academy, the show that asks the questions we believe the fans want to know about football. Joining me for this series is well-known and passionate manager Gus Poyet and our voice of the fans, long-suffering supporter Stephen Brown. Together, we will get inside the pitch and hope to answer your doubts about managing at the top end of the game, while we get the inside track of being a top-level football manager. In each episode, we get a better understanding of the thoughts, the decision-making, and the philosophies of a top-level coach, from picking a club captain to tactics and team identity as we connect the fans to the manager. In this series, we reference to past events as we use examples that were happening in the football world at the time we recorded this podcast. In this episode, we discuss captains. Gus, what's the importance of a captain in a team?
Well, I think there is two different situations for a coach or a manager. One is when you get into a club where they got a tradition, which it could be a problem, but there is plenty of clubs nowadays that they got a tradition of the captaincy being, you can call it, the one it had more years at the club, or someone who's in from the academy, and so many things that stop the manager from picking maybe the best player for what you believe is important. Secondly, culture of the club, the players you got at disposal that you need to decide. The most difficult part of the decision is what you're looking for in the captain. I always say that you can have a leader outside the pitch, in the dressing room, in meetings with the directors to negotiate the bonus, for example, or the relationship with the fans, blah, blah, blah. But the captain that we're talking about is the captain on the pitch. The captain that I like personally to be an extension of the manager on the pitch. So it's the one who's going to help you to deal with situations that happen during the game. So I like to pick it myself. I even had the chance in certain clubs to sign a player, arrive at the club, and name that player captain, which is unusual, because normally someone has been at the club for a while. But I had the other side in another club where you needed to pick the one who was at the club for the longest, and when the main one was suspended or injured, the next one in line, you're thinking, no, he cannot be the captain. And at the end, he's the captain. So I think we need to separate. The one is taking the armband to represent the club, and the one that represents the manager. And it's a big difference. It's something that you need to be careful, but also lucky, because depending on the club where you go, you need to also respect the culture of the club.
So, Stephen, from a fan point of view, what do you expect from a captain?
I think it is that representation of not the manager, but of the fans. So you have that representation that they're wearing the armband for you. So they are looking after you as the fan. They're looking after your side of the business on the pitch. So they are you in that sense, especially if you get someone that's come through the youth academy and if they're one of your own, then that is even better. You can say a Tony Adams type would be sort of the perfect scenario. Ledley King would be an example for Spurs in the fact of, not that he come across as a leader in the same sense of a Tony Adams, but he is by example. I mean, what he did, and you coached him, Gus. I mean, he is still loved, even though he had his strange situation of coaching with Mourinho, that he is still loved and he's still in the probably top 5 most loved Spurs players now.
I think, Steve, you say something very important, and it's difficult this because of how we're going to talk probably in the next few episodes of the podcast. It's about what you can tell the fans and what you can't. So it would be great that the manager pick the captain and it's the same that the fans that would like to be the captain. Again, there is so many things that influence the decision of the manager. For example, I had an easy choice in one of my teams because he was so intelligent and he played center midfielder, and he was understanding what I wanted all the time, that he was leading the team on the pitch naturally because he knew exactly what I wanted. And in another club, you're going to have someone who the fans they love, maybe you're not going to play him every week. Then it becomes that conflict of explaining that normally the captain that I want is the one that 99% is going to be playing, except when you're giving a rest or something very, very specifically. But no someone who, even if he's a good character, even if he's a good leader, is going to be in and out, because at the end you don't have it on the pitch. It's a little bit more difficult to find that the one that represents the fans. The one that represents the fans, maybe someone is giving you everything, someone who runs through a wall, someone who cares like anyone, but maybe he doesn't have a clue about football, doesn't understand tactics. And that's the difficult part between the manager and the fans. When it's the one that the fans want and the manager pick that one as well, that means that we're talking about a top player. We're talking about proper representative of the club. You say one, Tony Adams, we can talk about many examples in English football.
So basically, you're saying us that captain on the pitch may influence results. Basically, isn't a very important figure, not just because it's a leading character or he talks to the referee, but because he understands what the manager wants.
Yes, I want to make an example. Let's talk about football in normal circumstances, not with COVID. When it's very, very noisy, it's very difficult to connect and to communicate with the player. Normally, we try to use the players close to you, or when the game stops, you call the captain. But when they have that game, that non-stop game, you need your captain to understand what he needs, just with a simple message, just with a simple look at each other and a sign. He needs to understand that. So it's not something for, like I said before, a player who maybe is extraordinary for the team, they play every week, but who doesn't understand the whole team tactical responsibilities. It's not easy. Like I said, there is certain teams that are very simple. We can talk about the Premier League, but let's go to Spain. You go to Spain and you go Real Madrid in the last 10 years, you say Ramos, natural. Plays all the time, he's a center half, even at the club for long, he's a leader in the national team, he won everything, so natural. And then you go to another club that they lose the captain, and then to name the next one is a nightmare. And someone needs to be a captain. And that one is coming the difference between what I want, Steve said perfectly, what the fans will like, and then the club culture. And then we started talking about, sorry, Mariano, it's the first issue. You already have a problem. You have people say, that's not a problem. Yet it is. Because if the club got a culture and you need somebody else to be the captain, you're already in a kind of discussion about something so special, so natural for me, from my side, that it shouldn't be for discussion. And from the club side, it shouldn't be for discussion, but with their opinion. And from the fans, it shouldn't be for discussion. So it would be great if you can communicate freely with everyone. Tell them the truth. Tell them why. Obviously, not to say why you don't pick this one, because maybe it's a little bit negative, yeah? But telling them why you need this one. That's the main thing, the communication, free communication with the fans, that we don't have it.
We set up the beginning of the conversation saying the most important thing is selecting in an ideal world what type of captain we would like. Obviously, it's not always the case. In the news, the case of Aubameyang on Arsenal. I'm not an Arsenal fan, but I could see that probably personality issues or any other things that may happen there that makes Arteta to do this
decision.
This decision.
No. Okay, but Mariano, but I agree with you 100%. Now let's talk about Arteta and why he picked Aubameyang. I think it's easy.
That's the.
I think it's easy. The most expensive player at the club, the one he earned the most, probably the most important player or influence player on the pitch. Now let's think that Arteta is with COVID. Who you will pick as a captain of Arsenal? Now, who the fans will pick? Steve?
Oh, I'm trying to think now.
You know what? When you need to think,
yeah,
it means that there is no one choice.
Was Zach, the Swiss guy,
Okay.
Xhaka, he was there. Then he had the fans. He had a falling out with the fans. It didn't work, so he changed to Aubameyang because he had no one else to turn to. Is my belief.
That's a problem. So that means that it's not a problem for Arteta. It's not a problem for Aubameyang. It's not a problem of the fans. It's a problem of the squad that you have at the moment. That you don't have a
clear choice,
easy one, a leader by a natural leader that everybody will say, oh, it's him. So that becomes a personal decision. And when it's coming a personal decision, you can make mistakes. And I don't think Arteta picked the wrong one. Probably, I would say, most of the coaches or managers of Arsenal with this squad will think about Aubameyang.
It's interesting. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but you're right.
Yeah.
But the problem is when he makes two mistakes.
But it's interesting he's picked Lacazette as his replacement as a striker and as captain. That
Yes.
doesn't. That is.
I think he didn't pick Lacazette because I think in the back of the head of and the back of the mind of Arteta, it won't be first choice all the time. So he needed someone that being fit would play. So he said, okay, Aubameyang. Now he made two mistakes, Aubameyang. You know that anyone can make. You don't expect that from a captain. I don't think it's a big deal. I think for me, because there's too much press and too much social media, it become a massive thing. It would be easy for me. I made a mistake. Aubameyang is not my captain. It was my mistake. So simple.
Well,
my mistake. Sorry to everyone and the fans. Blah, blah, blah. I make sure that the next one is going to represent the club better. Blah blah. And the one he got the problem is Aubameyang now. Because
but
you cannot have that from a player. Yeah, sorry, Mayan.
There are two things that we've been talking about, and that on one side is the discipline issue, which is he made two mistakes, but
we have the discussion with whether captains are necessary these days and whether there should be a captain for each quarter of the pitch. That's a discussion that people have. When England kept passing around a few years ago, passing out the captain's armband from one player to another because of their substitute, everyone was outraged because it's the England's captain armband. It shouldn't be just passed around like sweets. But then there's the argument of it's just an armband and let's not worry about it. So it's very interesting, Gus, when you say how important that decision is to you as a coach.
For me, captain is a lot more. It's not the armband. The armband, if it was the armband, I would say the youngest one. It doesn't matter. I think the captain is someone who, when there is a little problem, let's not talk about things big, a little problem, and the referee called the two captains, and he tell you something that is not right or something that you need to put, that he concerned, look at the rest of the players and say, boys, this. And that's it. You don't need to go and say, well, yeah, the referee thinks, I don't know what you think. No. I'm the captain, I'm the leader, and I'm telling you, stop it. The next one is a yellow card. The next one is a red card. The next one is going to be this. The next one, the game is going to be stopped. And it's my word and the referees, bottom line. And that's a particular person. That is not for everyone. Not everyone can stand in a dressing room. And this is interesting as well for you as a fan. Not everyone can stand in a dressing room and talk to everyone. Proper. I'm not talking about talking.
What did you do yesterday?
No, talking, like asking questions, challenging you, asking, explaining things. And that's because you don't have it. How many times we talk about that, Stephen? You lose a game, you go home as a fan, and you're thinking, who do you think is talking now in the dressing room? Who? Who? Now, if your captain is not talking, you got a problem. You got a massive problem.
It was interesting with some of the Amazon shows, the behind the closed, whatever it's called. When you see, I remember the Spurs one with when Hugo Lloris was injured, and I always questioned the goalkeeper. Why is the goalkeeper captain? He doesn't come and do interviews. It's always Harry Kane, etc., etc. So the face of the Spurs is Harry Kane, but Hugo Lloris is the club captain. And then you see the dressing room when Spurs lost when Hugo wasn't there, to when we lost when Hugo was there, and you say, now I understand why he's the captain.
Well, that's the situation. Again, I don't like the goalkeepers. I had a club where my goalkeeper was the captain. I know why.
As a player or as a manager?
As a manager. I know why he was the captain. I go to the club in the middle of the season and I didn't change. And like you said, Steven, after a few games, I asked a few questions in the dressing room, and the first one who came and answered and talked, it was the captain. And even one game that he made a mistake, he even said, I don't think it's the day that I should talk today because today, we didn't win because of me. So it would be kind of, making excuses for the rest of the team because I made a mistake. So it was a representative of the player. Now, imagine your goalkeeper there. If there is a little bit of an issue in the other corner of the pitch, there's needs to separate each other, and referee called the two captains, and your captain is 85 yards in the other side. He didn't have any issues. I don't know. It's a matter of understanding what we like as a manager. I like someone in there, in the middle. Now, I respect the culture of the club. I always did. I try to convince the club why it's so important. And when I can convince them, you need to go to the club, because you don't want to start with a with a negotiation already, or with a discussion in your first day of training. But I think it's more important what people think. For my understanding of the game, I follow Dennis Wise at Chelsea. I go to Chelsea. My captain was Dennis Wise. I follow him. And I knew that following Dennis Wise, I was going to the core of the Chelsea fans. I was going to the core of the club. And that's the best you can. Now, if you look at your captain when you get to a new club and you go, he's the captain? What? That's a problem. You got a problem.
But when you've been captain, does that give you something as a player when you're on the other side? And when you've been a captain, you've been handed that, you're maybe not always been the captain of your clubs, but when you have been, and you've got that bound, does that give you something as a player? And how does your relationship change with the coach?
Not in my case, because I was always talking to the coach, but it gives you a little bit more responsibility. Yes, no doubt. You say exactly the same word, the perfect word. Sorry, I was not first choice in every club I've been, including national team, and I've been in some games in every club I've been, and in the national team, I was captain, which is interesting. Let's say that I was second or third choice, you can call it. I was always there and there above, but it gives you a little bit of extra responsibility on leading the team out, on even if it's your country, even more, no, leading your country out, in representing the players in front of the fans, or with the referee, like you said before, or taking that responsibility with you. And for me, it was natural. It didn't change my game. I didn't feel that I had the armband. I didn't. I like it. Because that put me in a level that I needed to respond even more, if you can say. But I think I have great captains during my career. In every club I've been and in the national team, they were outstanding. And some people it's natural, like Francesco Lee in Uruguay. And some people maybe it's not, like Gianfranco Zola in Chelsea, because we had Dennis Wise. But the figure of the captain for me is very important. And I'm sure that for the fans as well is very important. So I think we should pay attention to that.
Thank you for joining us in our podcast episode Captains at the 12 Man Academy. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to the series, leave a winning review or a 5-star rating on the platform you're listening on. And do not forget to check our website at www.12asintheword-man-academy.com and let us know what would you like to know. If you would like to sponsor this podcast, please email us to sponsors@the12manacademy.com. See you next time at the 12 Man Academy.